Now that we have our gains set based upon the source and how loud we want that particular band to be at when no compression is occurring, we can now set up the threshold. And the threshold is really the most important parameter that we will adjust within compression. By setting the threshold, we determine what level or at what volume the leash will start to get pulled on and begin to reduce the volume of the source. And again, that reduction is shown to us by the movement of that yellow line. And so as it goes down below 0, that means that compression or volume reduction is occurring. So we want to make sure that our compressor is not slamming too hard, which would mean that we have too low of a threshold, but we also want to make sure it's actually reducing volume when we ask it to. And if it's not doing that, then the threshold is too high. So let's listen to a particular band, and we'll start setting the threshold based upon the needs of that particular band.
Has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender. For the Lord our God has overcome.
So I'm going to compress it really, really hard by bringing the threshold down, and you can listen to what that sounds like, and then I'll bring the threshold to a point where I would consider it to be not enough compression, so you can hear what that sounds like.
He has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender. For the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus, our defender. He is Lord, and He has overcome.
You can hear when it's overcompressed, all of the clarity of that region goes away, and it's really hard to get a sense of that voice in comparison to the rest of the mix because there's nothing to bring it out front above everybody. So I'm going to use the key over here on the left to bring all the thresholds down real quick, and that way you can hear what it sounds like when the whole source is getting overly compressed.
He has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender.
This would be too much compression. It's losing a lot of its life. It's losing a lot of its dynamics ability. Now, we do want some compression, so if this is a 10 right now and off is a 0, we want to find somewhere in the middle around a 5. Just enough compression so that we're smoothing out the source, just enough compression so we have more predictability in what it's going to do in the mix, but not so much that we're squishing all the life and making it kind of sound flat as a pancake.
He has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender. For the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be
So I'll usually aim for, in the real peaks, maybe about 4 to 6 dB of reduction. Again, it depends very much on the moment, and it depends very much on the source and what our goal is. So by using the range key, we can determine how much compression will occur. We can determine the maximum amount of compression. And so range is really just that. It's kind of the max the leash will be allowed to restrain the volume. If the number is closer to 0, then there'll be a minimal amount of compression that will be allowed to occur. If we bring it further away from 0, then that means a greater amount of compression will be allowed to occur. So the range isn't a target, it's kind of the limit of how much the leash will be allowed to restrain the volume. Again, it's not the desired amount of reduction, it's kind of the maximum allowed amount of reduction. So if I bring that range up,
He has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender. For the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus, our defender. He is Lord, and He has overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way.
so you can see how a lot of these parameters work together to get the source sounding its best. So we want to make sure that we're adjusting settings, listening, bypassing, adjusting settings, listening, bypassing, confirming that the changes we're making are actually indeed helping things. So my goal would be to have the range set at around kind of a max of -6. We get a little higher in some spots depending on the needs of the vocal. Maybe a little bit less in some spots depending on the need of the vocal. It really just depends on what you're after and what your goals are. But keep in mind, if your threshold is set too low and too much compression is occurring, that'll sound unnatural and flat. It won't allow the voice to carry above the rest of the mix. And if the threshold is too high and not enough compression is occurring, then you're not really effectively using what multiband compression can do.